Cycle Jerks.
Hey, get out of the road, dummy.
Cycle Jerks Podcast.
Hey, welcome everybody to Cycle Jerks Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Stewart. Today I'm going solo. My Chris is off the grid somewhere doing something cool. So you just got me today as the host, and today's guest is a longtime colleague of mine, way back in the days when I was just starting out as a sales rep, and this guy had a big impact on me and my career. So Bill Armas joining us today on the podcast. Welcome, Bill.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, good to see your smiling face, dude.
It's good to still be alive, hanging on to life by a thread.
Well, I remember, in the early days at GT, I just remember going into the sales meeting, and it was like a bunch of old dudes, and then me was in there.
It really was.
It was kind of crazy, but everybody really took me in, and I was able to glean a lot of wisdom off of everybody, and you yourself included. You weren't that old though. You're only a little bit older than I am, but
well, I was younger than you are now, so we could go with that.
Yeah, but I remember you traveled with me, and that was a lot of fun, and we were just visiting shops, trying to sell helmets and helmets that you designed. And how did you get into that role as a helmet designer?
Well, I always that's bullshit. I didn't always love safety. I was never a guy. I never wore a helmet until I got hired on as the national sales manager for Bell Helmets for the bicycle division. And at the time, Bell Helmets was a $36 million company. It wasn't huge, but they did it, and about $3 million of it was in the bike business. And there was Mark Williams, who I don't know if you remember, but Mark Williams was really a great manager. Worked in the bike business for quite a while, and me. And then we had a couple support staff, and that was kind of it. This tiny little division within this pretty big company called Bell Helmets had its own manufacturing right there in Norwalk, California.
Yeah.
And so the factory was there. All the designers were there. For a smaller company, we had a design team of about 7 guys, which is pretty big. And I had a guy named Lester Broersma, who 6'8", just this big guy, never spent a minute on a bicycle. He was a motorcycle guy. All the guys were motorcycle guys. And so he really wanted a lot of input when we just started designing helmets. And so I learned a lot about bicycle helmet design just from being one of the guys who rode bicycles, and knew what a cyclist might want from a helmet. And so I learned all about how the helmets are tested, the materials that were available to use, energy dispersion, weight distribution, fit characteristics, all the kind of stuff that you got to have to make something that people want. And mostly just because Lester and his crew let me in. Normally, if you're a sales guy, the design team, they do not want to see you anywhere near them. But Lester was so great. And I happened to come on at Bell Helmets at the time where we had just introduced the V1 Pro.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that means anything to you.
Oh, yeah.
But basically it was, we had a real cyclist in, a professional guy. He wasn't of any great note, but Mark Williams, the guy I worked with, this is before I got there, asked him, like, what would you do if we could make you a helmet? And he gave Mark his hairnet and said, make it just like that, leather hairnet. And so the V1 Pro, maybe if you squinted and it was far away, it might be hairnet, but it was so much bigger, but everything else was like a football helmet that you're riding out your bike on, with a big football helmet. And this was something that had ribs on it
Oh
and
yeah.
it looked somewhat like a hairnet, and it was the most popular thing out there.
Oh,
And we sold lots. We went from 3 million, we doubled to 7, we doubled again to 14, and but I was there for 7 years, and at the end of the 7 years, we were doing over $50 million just in bicycle helmets.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right time for me, and it was a great ride, and yeah, so I did learn how to a lot about bicycle helmets, and it was great. It was really fun.
Well, that V1 Pro, I remember. I mean, that thing had a long run, right? I mean, because it was like soft shell with the Lycra cover, right? Before the V1 Pro, kind of, right? Am I
No,
remembering this right? Or was that?
the Giro is the first company that put the Lycra cover. We made a helmet called the Little Bell Shell,
Oh, I
and it
remember
was
those.
and babies' necks could not. This just tells you how heavy helmets were back then. Their necks couldn't support the weight of an ABS shell, a thick plastic shell on top of expanded polystyrene liner. So we didn't put the thick shell. We just made it just EPS, just styrofoam.
Uh,
And legend has it that um, Greg LeMond was talking to Jim Gentis of Giro at the time, and Jim asked him kind of the same question, like, "What do we got to do? What do we have to do to get a helmet that you guys will wear and you like?" And Greg LeMond said, "This, the Little Bell Shell." He goes, "Make this for grown-ups." And so Jim ran with that, and he put a Lycra cover over it, put Giro on both sides, and it was so light. It weighed about 7.5, 8 ounces. Meanwhile, the V1 Pro weighed over 14 ounces.
okay.
The difference was announced, and they became popular right away. But that probably wasn't until 1988 or something around there. We had a pretty good run without them in the picture for a while with the V1 Pro.
Yeah.
But before Pro, there were some just really god awful ugly helmets.
Oh, I remember.
It was just a bowl on your head, very little ventilation, super heavy, ugly. Just it was awful, and so we came up with it. We immediately got ripped off. Do you remember there was a guy named Joel Davis? You ever Joel Davis?
Oh yeah, I
So
know Joel
Joel,
Davis.
I called him the Godfather of the bike business, man. He was had his fingers in everything. He worked for West Coast Cycle at the time, or he worked for a company called Veta. He had his own
Oh yeah.
importing, and he got somebody to kind of knock off the V1 Pro and called it the Veta helmet, and that was our biggest competition, like in a flash. Like they got him in, NASCAR picks them up, and then they're off and running. And then Joel went to work for West Coast Cycle, and he was just a wild guy. Wild guy. I used to be like, I'd get up every morning going, "What's Joel Davis doing today? I gotta outwork that guy." He wasn't hard at all. He had somebody who designed a good knockoff, and they were selling them by the boatloads.
Well, I remember as a retailer, I was just a kid. I thought the whole adult bike helmet, I was a BMX kid. So
Right.
the and we didn't wear helmets. We only raced in helmets. We would go ride our bikes every day. No one wore a helmet. And then on race day, you had to have a helmet on.
Right.
But so we, as kids, rebellious kids, we thought the whole helmet thing was dumb. But then the adult helmet thing was really dumb. And then I got to go out and sell these V1 Pro helmets. I'm selling bikes to these families, and it's like, well, should I get a helmet? It's like, oh, absolutely. And then I go for it. I'm just like, I just remember it was a real moment for me as a human where I figured I got to lie here to
It's a
make the
content.
sale.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
but
What once it
yeah,
became realized, and people, the USCF in '86, I think, came up with a rule that if you raced, Cat 1 through 4, if you're in a USCF race, you must wear an ANSI or Snell approved helmet.
yeah,
And really had the only one that was usable,
yeah.
for that. And so almost everybody raced in V1 Pros. And then if the top notch guys, in your neighborhood, the cyclist, if he's wearing a helmet, well, then if you're just going for your little weekend ride, you're going to wear a helmet too. And it just
Yeah.
really got on.
Well, and it makes a lot of sense. I mean, now looking back at it, just I was what a stupid kid I was, you know. I should have had a helmet on. I can't tell you how many times I bounced my head off the dirt doing something stupid on my BMX bike, you know. But
Yeah,
when you're young,
you
you
were
know.
quite skilled. Young Stu had some skill.
Yeah,
I remember
well,
young Stu just wheeling some things, and I was like, wow, look at that guy. And meanwhile, like you say, all the other guys, all the other sales team at GT, old and fat, and just if the sales team went on a group ride, it was in the parking lot. That was about anybody ever did to test a bike.
I remember, yeah, it's funny because since before GT, I was at Cannondale just for a year, and the culture was way different at Cannondale. But but then coming into GT, I was so excited to be at GT because I raced BMX and Richard Long and Gary Turner. The whole thing was just like this is perfect for me, you know. And I just remember walking into it going, "Wow, there's a bunch of old dudes in here." And then I remember like the Dan Bond, the sales manager, he introduced laptops and I was like a Hogate and the one guy back east, they quit right on the spot. They weren't going to do a laptop. And that was really good for me to see as like a young person, like, because it's like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to be that old guy that doesn't embrace technology,
Right, right.
you
Dan
know?
Bond, he did not get a lot of love out in the industry. There really
Yeah,
weren't a lot of people that knew his name, but he did a great job at GT.
I
He was
agree.
he was a guy. He was in the field. He worked for Cycles Peugeot, and he came in. Richard brought him in, and he did embrace technology, and he really worked at knowing all the territories, how many shops were in a territory, how much business they did, and
Yep.
he really good job of carving up territories that would allow you guys to get out, see the most shops, not just in terms of GT bikes, but also Riteway products, because
Yeah.
that was a really big part of the business.
How many guys did Dan bring over from Peugeot? Because I know I replaced Harry, who's a Peugeot rep, and then Stan Alger, who did the other half of NorCal. He was also a Peugeot rep. Do you know were there?
I think there were maybe 3 or 4 other guys.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Guys, and Richard, he was a people person, Richard Long.
Yeah.
And he loved his sales team. He loved those guys. And so, it was hard to just say, you're out, you're out, you're out. But as he grew the business, he brought in people that he knew, Dan did. And I would say maybe at the peak, there were 6 or 7 ex Peugeot guys at GT Riteway.
Okay. Right. Yeah, because that's what I always thought. Because once I came down for the sales meeting and I met Stan. And it was like, oh, you're like the same age as Harry. And then there was a bunch of, I was just like, oh, so maybe these guys all came over from Peugeot. I don't know. I didn't get the chance to get to know a lot of them because we didn't get together that often. But Dan was, I think he was a great leader, and he was pretty intimidating for like me as a young kid. He had those eyeballs, and he'd get mad sometimes, and he'd shout, and it was like, whoa, this dude, I definitely wanted to keep my interactions with him positive and short.
You know what? he was all business, man. I loved working with Dan, all business. I would say Bill Galloway, I remember Bill Galloway was one of the vice presidents at
Yeah.
GT. Bill Galloway, Dan Bond, and I went out to lunch probably about 3 times a week. And so I got to see a side of Dan that maybe not everybody else got to see. And when he was a sales rep, I rode with him a couple times. He was the Southern California, Orange County guy.
Okay.
And afterwards, he would call me and he would say, "Hey, I'm doing this. What do you think of this?" And he was really a student of his workplace. I mean, he wanted to get better all the time.
Uh,
And he thought I knew what I was doing. I didn't. I couldn't tell him, Dan, I've never been on the road. Are you kidding me? I just came in as this national sales manager guy. I don't know how to sell anything. I just know how to tell other people how to sell things, you know.
Right.
Yeah, he used me as a resource, and so when they wanted to get somebody to be getting their helmet program off the ground. And by the way, I also did all the other GT branded accessories. So all of our bags, on the bike bags, backpacks, carry bags for the BMX team, all that kind of stuff, all the clothing, GT branded apparel.
Oh man.
BMX kits, all that stuff. I was in charge of. So we had kind of a lot to do, but it was a big joke when I came on because Richard gave me the title general manager, and says he's the general manager of the helmet division, and people would just laugh and like, really, you're the general manager of the helmet? I want to be general manager of the water bottle division. I'm like, it's funny. Okay.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, Richard had passed. I got hired, and Richard passed like almost immediately after I got hired. That accident, on the to Big Bear. It was
July
like maybe weeks.
19th.
Yeah. Sorry, you cut out there. What was it?
He passed on July 13th, 1996.
Yeah, man.
Have
No.
I ever told the story of what we were doing that day?
No.
So we had a idea. Dan had an idea where we would go out and go around the country and show all the new bikes to bike shops in their area, because everybody was showing bikes at the trade shows. Here's all the new bikes. And if you're lucky, you get half an hour of the dealer's time at the trade show. And they got to go in and they got to write their whole, season forecast there at the bike shop. And you sales guys are walking them around, taking orders, writing business, but you didn't really get enough time. And they saw everybody else's bike at the same time.
Yep.
And what if we went out to them? We put these bikes in a moving van, went out to these hotels, set up our own mini trade show in the hotel, and let them walk around for 5 hours, 6 hours to see things, and we could all make our own presentations. And I got to make my presentation about the helmet division, and we would talk to him about everything. Mark Peterman went along. He would talk to him about all the design influence behind the bikes. And it was really great. And so the first year we did it, we did 8 cities. No, we did 10 cities. 10 cities in 28 days.
Oh, right.
Grueling. It was grueling. You were just on the road the entire time. And it's going great. We're writing business. The salesman didn't have to go all the way to the trade show to do it. It's their own area. So we would be, in Florida. We went to St. Louis. We went to Chicago. We went to New Jersey. And so on July 13th, we go to Boston, and we get there and we put all the bikes in we had to fly the bikes there because it was such a short turnaround. We didn't have our big moving van. Wow. So the bike in a U-Haul, pretty big U-Haul, but we got all these bikes in there, and we brought maybe a total of 30 bikes. We go to the hotel, park the U-Haul in the parking lot. We go out to a nice dinner in Boston, come back, we wake up, and we're going to set up now in the hotel. So we go out to get the bikes in the parking lot. And I don't know if you remember the late, great Ed Hickey.
Oh, yeah.
Ed was kind of the managing kind of the details. He was, he was kind of the on the ground kind of guy.
Yeah.
And we're like, Ed, go. He's kind of the gopher too. We kind of abused Ed a little bit, but Ed, go get the truck, pull it around to the ballroom. comes back. He comes back like, where's Ed? We can't find him. Finally comes back maybe 10 minutes later. He goes, guys, I can't find the truck. And
Oh, no.
we're like, what? And he's mad at me. He's like, Armis, what did you do with the truck? It's not funny. It's not funny. I said, Ed, I moved the truck. I promise I didn't move the truck. And Peterman is like, this is not funny, you guys. Where's the truck? Let's go. We go out. The truck is gone. It's gone. Stolen.
Wow.
We're there 30 in the morning in Boston. Our whole show, it's got all the computers, all the speakers, everything for the trade shows in this truck, and it's stolen.
Wow.
Prototype bikes that don't exist anywhere else. And so we're sitting there and we're waiting for Dan Bond to come down. And we're like, this is gonna suck, you know. And he comes down and he looks just bummed out. And I'm like, who told him? Who told him? How does he know this?
Right.
And we're like, we got some bad news, Dan. He goes, what is it? And we said, the truck got stolen. And he has his head down and he goes like, that's the least of our problems.
Oh, wow.
What? Something worse than the truck got stolen? And he said, Richard is dead.
Oh, my
and
gosh.
Nobody spoke. Nobody spoke. Nobody said how. Nobody spoke for, I'm going to say 10 minutes. We sat there. I think we all cried. And I sat there, and then Dan told us what happened about going up to Big Bear, crashing his motorcycle. And we sat there, and for some reason, I just said, well, we got to find a way to put on this show then.
Yeah.
We don't have any handouts. We don't have anything. It's, now it's probably about 8:00 in the morning, East Coast time. There's nobody at GT because everybody is in Big Bear for the Norba race there.
Oh, wow.
And I said, Richard would kick our ass if we did not put on this show.
Yeah.
Listen, nothing stops you, right? There is
Right.
nothing to stop us. So we all got on the phone, and all the R&D guys came down, and they got to GT. Billy Griggs and everybody was down there just building new prototypes. We talked to the Georgers in Buffalo, and any of the bikes that were kind of a carryover, if they had them there, they were bringing them over. We got the art department came down from Big Bear, got there. And this is all, everybody through tears. Everybody, we just lost our leader.
Yeah.
They built new booklets for us to hand out. And everybody put it all together, and they put it on an airplane. And Brian Wilson, I don't know if you remember Brian,
Yep.
but terrific guy.
Yeah.
He gets on a red eye from Orange County to Boston. We meet the truck at 6:00 in the morning at the airport, and we bring everything we got to the hotel. We set it up. I mean, the thing starts at 9:00 in the morning. It normally took us half a day to set it up. We didn't have all the bikes, but we set this thing up in the ballroom, and the dealers showed up. And that's when they learned, some of them had heard before that, but most of them learned that Richard had died and that our truck was stolen. Here's what we had. And we had a video presentation. We went out, we bought a computer, we rented all the other stuff. And we put on that show, and with broken hearts and just a lot of just dedication to the brand. And I think that was the thing about working at GT, is people really loved the brand. They loved the company. They loved Richard. A lot of them loved each other. It was a good group. And we put that show on. Yeah. And I don't know anything else in business I've ever done that I'm more proud of than the fact that, we put on an entire show. It took us months to prepare it the first time, and we did it overnight the second time. And got it done.
Man, Bill, thanks for sharing that story. That it's hard not to get emotional, like just knowing the gravity of the whole thing, and then I can imagine that the dealers probably felt a real sense of
Loss.
loss, but also hopefully they understood. I mean, the moment, that was just, man, that's wild. And to
That
put it all together,
Stu, the other part of it is that date sticks out of my mind. I can rattle it off
yeah.
uh, because it was the 1 year anniversary of my own dad's death.
Oh,
So I was already up and moping around. And yeah, I just it was crazy. And so yeah, the emotion that was there and on everybody we talked to at GT during the day that were building the bikes and putting stuff together, all the conversations through tears, because Richard Long was just the kind of guy. He was your boss. Yeah, he was your boss. And if you didn't do something right, he told you that you did it wrong. He absolutely would tell you that it was wrong. But then he'd give you a pat on the back and you're out the door, and you really want to do it right. You really want to do it not partly because you don't want to get chewed again, but partly because you wanted Richard to be proud of what you did.
yeah.
And yeah, he was, even though we were about the same age, he's a few years older than me, but he is kind of a replacement father figure for me, with the loss of my own dad. But
Yeah.
yeah, everybody wanted to do their best for Richard, and I think that brought the company closer together.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd only met Richard a couple of times at BMX races. I met him one time. Yeah, I was trying to get on. Pop Lemon was running the team, and I was trying to get my. I didn't quite have enough to get on Factory GT. I wasn't quite at the level. But
That
I was a nice guy, and and I was trying to talk my way in, and I met Richard. Pop introduced me to Richard, and we had a really good talk. And the guy was just like, I really admired him, and like he just had this leadership, like when I think of a leader, I think of Richard, and I didn't even work alongside him at all, but just maybe because of the position, partially because maybe because I was younger and the position that he held at GT. And you're right, GT was the brand. I mean, when you think about um, the GT Good Times parties, there was just so many positive, cool things about GT. Never mind, we owned BMX back then,
right,
and we're making great strides with mountain bikes. And I always felt like GT was great at all the low-hanging fruit. Like, like the big, like I remember the nationals. I think it was Andrew Herrick was like I don't know if you were involved with this, but the hats,
yeah. Every Norba event had its own hat.
right? And
Yeah,
and the whole hillside would just be littered with people wearing GT hats. It's like, man, that's really smart, you know. But yeah, it was super fun. I'm so grateful that I got the opportunity that I did to work there when I was at that age, and left such an impression on me. And really, so many things were like how things should be done. And it's not always the way when at different companies, but the dealers love the brand, the riders love the brand, and the whole unit at GT, everybody was all in, and
right.
it was really fun to be a part of that.
Absolutely. Fun place to work.
Yeah.
Really work. The sales team was a little bit older, but all the people that worked in the building were young.
Yeah.
A really young crew.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't tell you how many rental cars that they crashed. And, they just did so many stupid things. Got naked. They brought in, like, if we had to work late, sometimes we'd work through the night. And why are there strippers here in the building? Like what is it about?
Oh my gosh.
Uh,
Well, yeah. I mean,
there was a
like,
lot of young people, so much energy. We made so many mistakes. Um, and I was kind of one of the older guys, so it was like, wow.
I remember one time I was at one of the the good times parties, and there was like this guy. They had this band and the saxophone. It had like a saxophone and like had a horn division.
Common sense. They were
Oh
off.
yeah. Common sense. That's it. So the guy that was playing sax, I go over. I'm at the keg, and he's got this. He's there, and I was like, "Hey man, you guys are great." And he's just, "Oh, thanks," and then he like right in front of me, he just takes the beer and just and it spills all down the front of him, and then he's got like a little goatee or something. He's just like, "Wow," and I'm like, dude. And he goes, I didn't come here to have a bad time. I was just like, okay, right on, dude.
Hey, I'm with the band.
Yeah, it was wild. But and I remember those the swap meets or whatever I forget exactly, but flea market, I forget what we called them. Open house.
Open house.
Yes.
But yeah.
That was cool.
In every warehouse. So that meant that we had to go to Buffalo in February. It's like,
that sounds terrible.
Listening, love you guys, but February is a tough time to go there.
Yeah, I've never been to Buffalo. All right, okay, so
love you guys, but I would always crack on Buffalo, especially. Didn't have as much of a sense of humor about it, but John Georgia, we would go back and forth about Buffalo.
I love Georgia. He's like one of my all-time favorites.
He really is. You just
he's a beauty. Did you ever hear the story about his massage in Vegas?
I don't know. I don't know if I want to.
It's pretty good. Yeah, so he's got back problems. He's a big man, and
right.
He's on his feet all day at the trade show, and he comes back to the hotel, and we all shared rooms, so everybody had a roommate at Interbike or wherever, and so he's sharing a room with somebody, and but he comes back and he's like tells the bell guy, he's like, look, I need somebody to come up and give me a massage. And the guy's, oh, okay, yeah, I'll take care. He goes, no. I want like a deep tissue. My back is killing me. I'm not looking for anything, extra. And the guy's all, okay, we got you. And so he goes up to his room and he says that, like maybe 20 minutes later, he says this little Asian gal shows up. She's like 5'2" and maybe 100 pounds. He's like, there's no way this is going to work for me. Just as a size and everything.
Right,
She's not gonna be able to put leverage on this dude. Yeah. So he sends her away, and then he got another one that was like maybe a happy ending type of massage woman. And then he sent her away, and he calls down there. He says, look, I need somebody with like real size to get up here that can really put their elbows in my back, And so anyway, he finally gets it was a little Asian boy, and it's the way he described him. So he says like, okay, after two tries, it's like, whatever, lay the table out. And he says that he gets on the table and the guy's doing his little thing. He's like, I couldn't even feel it. And then next thing you know, I said, hey, listen, any way you can get more leverage? And he goes, well, I have to climb up on you. And he's like, okay, climb up on me, walk on my back. I don't care, whatever you got to do. And so he climbs up on him. He says he's riding me. He's like sitting on a horse, and he's on my back. He's doing elbows, and he's finally getting into like the sweet spot. And he's like, I'm like, oh. And he says, right then my roommate walks in. He just immediately turned around and walked out. So yeah, no, he's a beauty.
Oh
yeah, I'd love to get him on here sometime to.
Oh man,
yeah,
love that guy. Oh, I had so many running jokes with him.
Yeah,
most we can't share here. One Georgia ditty, but we were out at Roadshow. He was there, and we were at this nice restaurant, and he's like, yeah, I got to see Man About a Horse. So he goes to the bathroom, and right after him, I think Peterman goes after him into the bathroom. And I think John sees his shoes or sees through the crack that it's Peterman. And so he just starts making all these disgusting noises as he's sitting on the toilet, and just disgusting. And he's just going at it and going at it. And it's just more, Peterman is slapping so hard. And he goes back and Peterman goes back and sits down. Georgia finishes his business. He goes back to the table, and Peterman's like, yeah, I heard your act in there. And John goes, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, and he goes, you know who else did? Like 3 other dudes. They walked in and they just left. And I heard halfway in the bathroom, turned around and left.
Oh man.
Yeah,
he's a classic.
It is awesome.
Nothing like a good fart joke.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, so we usually, I mean, we got going on GT, and we'll probably talk more about it, but we always like to find out, like, when did you get involved with bikes, and how did that happen?
You know, I came from a pretty poor family, Stu. We had one bike in our family. It was given to me and to all the kids to share by my grandpa when I was 6 years old.
Okay.
And it was a full-size adult bike. You know, it was a full-size, you know, probably 54 cm frame. You know, it was a cruiser style handlebars. You know, it had 26-inch wheels. It was a big bike. And when I was 6 years old, I couldn't get on the bike.
All right.
But we lived on a slight hill. My house was on a slight hill. So I would push the bike up the hill, and I would go and I would get on the curb. And then I would swing my leg over. I couldn't reach the pedals. Swing my leg over, grab onto the handlebars, point that thing downhill, and just let it rip. Going down, wind through my hair, the greatest feeling in the world. And I couldn't stop. You know, I had coaster brakes, but I can't reach them.
Right.
So what I would turn into our driveway and let the bike roll on the front lawn while I just jumped off and ghost rided this bike into our rail fence at the end of the yard.
Oh, geez.
And then I do it again.
All right.
And pretty fun until one day I just got going so fast I couldn't make the turn into our front yard, and our car, old jalopy. We had a crappy car. I just ran into the back of it. It was parked on the street. Into the back of it, went sliding up. God, I was on the hood of the car.
Oh man.
And yeah, my mom saw. She comes out. She's like half worried, half like angry that I'm riding the bike into this fence anyway. And I just remember that as being my love affair with that kind of experience on the bike. And that was my bike until I was 12 years old.
Oh, okay.
And then I got a Schwinn Stingray ripoff bike. And so, you know, ape hanger, handlebars, you know, banana seat. It was great. And I rode that thing. That's how I got to school. You know, I came home. I was riding my bike. I couldn't go beyond a 2-block radius, though. My mom wouldn't let me go past a 2-block radius when I was riding. I could go to school and I could ride around the block. But there were so many kids on our block that if I started, it was like the Pied Piper. And other kids were getting on their bikes and we were riding around, you know, and we'd play follow the leader. We would do all kinds of stuff. And that was my social life, you know, just riding around and do that. And we would do plays. we would do plays in the front yard. We'd put on musicals for the neighborhood. So
Wow.
that was my start. And then I kept that bike until I was probably 16, 17. I was getting there, and so, I mean, I'm dating myself and letting when I was 16 years old, it was 1973.
Uh-huh.
So the bike boom is going on, and my dad, he's like, "You got a bike, dude. You don't need one of these fancy 10 speed." But my friends had 10 speeds, and I played all the ball sports: football, basketball, baseball. And so in the winter, me and my friends, we would go to Lake Avenue Church, which is about a 10-mile drive from Duarte, California, where I'm from. And we would ride our bikes, them on their 10 speeds, me on my Stingray, all the way to Lake Avenue Church. And then we would play basketball in their gym. They had an indoor gym we could play in for free.
Sweet.
Basketball all day long, and then ride home. And, I'm thinking, that kid had some energy, man. That kid had some energy, boy. We would be up and down the court all day, ride home, and those were my kind of my big adventures when I could finally get farther than 2 blocks from my house. I went with my buddies, and I got to be in pretty good shape. So when we would do a trip, we would do trips down to the beach, and we would ride down to Scotchman's Cove or Dana Harbor, and we would camp there. And so that's a long ride. That's 40 miles each way.
Oh, wow.
And
on a Stingray?
No, I borrowed a 10 speed, but
Okay.
I was riding the Stingray, that I could just totally hang with these guys with their fancy bike. I had the crappiest 10 speed too. Yeah. I had to borrow my cousin's, but I kept up, and it was really just part of life for me. It wasn't like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm getting better at riding my bike, I'm going to do hill repeats, I want to do it. It wasn't like that for me at all. It was always about, I got to go to the library. Bye,
Uh-huh.
And I'm on my bike, go to the library, and it's either that or it's like I'm on an adventure with my friends and we're going to ride a long way. And I really had just a fondness. It's like, I think everybody who's a cyclist has that time where there's a fondness in your life for that experience. And it's really, you only really get it on a bicycle. I did a lot of other stuff, but it always left me with the fondness for that. And then when I got in college, I didn't really have a bike. I walked everywhere I went. And then when I got older, I didn't ride very much. And I didn't really ride that much until I got back in the bike business working for Bell Helmets.
Okay.
And Bell Helmets, it was a motorcycle company. Besides Mark Williams, my friend, who, by the way, was my friend from high school, who, by the way, did those rides to the church and to the beach.
Oh, yeah.
I did those rides with, and he hired me. He was the vice president of marketing at Bell Helmets, and he hired me to be the national sales manager. And I don't know if I would have gotten that kind of a job if it wasn't one of my buddies from high school. And he took a huge chance on me. And
it worked out, though.
It worked out.
I mean, 3 to 15 million, right?
So, but he was the other guy who rode bikes. And so I got a bike. I'm in the bike business. Now I got my bike. Now I'm riding my bike, and I'm riding with Mark. But there's nobody else at Bell that really rides bikes. They're riding motorcycles. Right. But spending time riding with Mark, that was a good time. That kind of got me back on cycling, more of kind of the experience that lots of cyclists have now, where you wake up, you kid up, and then you go for a pretty good ride, and stop for coffee in the middle of it or something, and then get back. But really, really loved getting back into bikes at that. And and then I like you, I've never scaled Mount Diablo, but I would go, pretty, but not. It wasn't part of my daily routine anymore. And at GT, all the people in the building rode. Everybody rode. So I would go with them. They would have lunch rides, and so you'd have, maybe a 15-mile lunch ride.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was on the gas from the parking lot. You got only got 15 miles. They put on, and I was off the back. I was off the back, guys. Woo, man, they went hard. Everybody was a really good ride, and so I would do that. But I would always let them go, so I didn't have the embarrassment of being off the back in the first quarter mile. So, but yeah, we did a lot of that kind of stuff then, and I really did most of my riding when I worked for Park Tool Company, and we bought a house on a lake in Minnesota, and I had an 18-mile ride I did religiously after work. There were no big hills. There was one little kind of a soft hill that I would go up, but ride around. I lived in a city called Lino Lakes, and we would ride around the lakes. I had a nice little 18-mile loop I would do after work, and never, maybe for a quarter mile of it, I would be on the street. It was all bike paths, and it was just great, really great, just quiet, and the lake, the birds, all the great stuff that you would see. And yeah, that's where I really that was the best riding that I did. And then I moved back here, and now I have to dodge cars, and we ride on the Silver Strand here in San Diego or around Mission Bay, but we take it pretty easy, my wife and I.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I wanted to talk to you about because we used to, back in the day, we were both fans of Jim Rome, right? On some level. And so Jim Rome always had like this NorCal,
Yeah,
SoCal
yeah.
rivalry. And you and I would either text each other or call each other with these hating on each other's California. So I would be throwing shade on SoCal, and you'd be throwing it back at NorCal, and we'd be going back and forth, and it was great fun. But there was a time when you took that job with Park Tool and you moved from San Diego to Minnesota.
We're pimping.
What was that? I cut out. So talk about that decision to make that move. I mean, that's a radical
I
move.
didn't hear.
Oh shit. Am I cutting out again?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Well,
oh,
you did a little bit there, but I get your question.
yeah.
Well, I worked for Bell Helmets for 7 years, and I had some other jobs and worked for GT, and I worked for a paintball company for a couple of years there in between. And then while I was doing that, I also had a consulting company, because a lot of the guys from GT that were the designers there were freelance now. And so I could do product development. So I had a little company called the Infusion Group. It was a turnkey product development company. And I used the designers at GT. My boy Lester Broersma from way back in the Bell days, he did helmet designs, and somebody wanted to get helmets. And so I had some companies, and we did some really cool projects with them. And one of my clients on the marketing side was Park Tool. And I knew Eric Hawkins from my very young days back at Bell Helmets. We would go to the open houses together. So I would see Eric at the Hans Johnson open house, and we would go and we would be at all these open houses and do the tours. So we would set up our little booths, there are 10 by 10s, and then we'd get out of there and go out and eat and maybe have some adult beverages. And we got to be really good friends, and love Eric. And so he threw me a couple little things to do for him while I was consulting, and I was in San Clemente. And he would say, "You should come work for us." And I said, "Eric, I can do it from here." I was a very early work from home kind of guy.
Yeah.
"I can do it from here." He's like, "No, you can't. No, you can't." And so every few weeks, he would send me, I don't even know if they have these anymore, but they used to have in the supermarket the booklets of all the real estate listings. Do you remember those?
Oh yeah.
You could go and you could pick up and you could just look and see all the houses that are for sale. And he says, look what your San Clemente dollar can buy in Minnesota. And so he kept setting me stuff. And finally, I got to the point where I love to work with people, but I was going into my own office and sitting by myself every day and just on the phone with designers and clients. And it wasn't that fun, honestly. I mean,
Right.
And I respected Park Tool Company so much.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about a company that does it right. They absolutely do it right.
Yeah.
And I respected Eric. So, and I said, this will be fun. Our kids were all out of the house. Our baby was in college at Chico State. So it was like, they're not dropping by for dinner.
Right.
So we said, let's do it. Let's move to Minnesota. Let's work for Park Tool Company because I just respected him so much. And that's what we did. And we bought a big ass house right on a lake. We kept our San Clemente house, thank goodness. But we did that. And I worked for Park Tool for another 9 years. And it was amazing, amazing. And again, right place, right time. We went from about 14 million to 38, 39 million my last year there.
Wow.
It just grew and grew and grew. It's a company, they make most of the tools that they sell, they make right there in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Yeah.
And they've got a group of people that work there, and they're all longtime employees. Everybody's been there a long time. They know what they're doing. They know how to make sure that everything's right. And the company I don't want to get into their financials too much, but they moved into a brand new building while I was there. And it was, I think they've expanded since then, but it was about 80,000, between 80,000 and 100,000 square feet factory and warehouse.
Wow.
And beautiful. And yeah, it was great. And Eric, he just really knew how to run business. We never put anything on sale. We always managed the price at mail order.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was never it was not a loss leader.
Right.
It was always, here's the price, keep the price. Anybody the price, Eric called him. We had another great guy, one of the best guys I've ever worked with, named Dan Garceau. I don't know if you ever met Dan, but he was the national sales manager there at Park Tool. And yeah, he was on the phone. And everybody just had such an affection for the brand that they did it. And so bike shops could make money on it. Almost half of our business was to bike shops for their own use as well.
Right.
So you had a lot of kind of things, a lot of tools. And I didn't know about bikes. I was like, what's this? What does it do? So I really got a lesson, learned a lot how to work on bikes. I ended up building 2 of my own bikes from the ground up.
Oh, wow.
And did every single thing, blasted them, put everything in, laced the wheels, the whole shooting match.
Wow.
And I don't think I could do that because I had a guy named Calvin Jones, who's pretty famous in the bike biz.
Oh, yeah.
He was looking over my shoulder, making sure I didn't screw up too much. But yeah. What a great place. I'm still and Eric Hawkins, honestly, one of the funniest guys I've ever known. He is so funny. And he is so funny and smart. And yeah, great
He's
guy.
so deadpan, right? I mean, like I remember he would come to the GT meetings, and then he would come, and then later on at Giant, he would come and he was his presentation was dialed, but it was very kind of monotone, deadpan. I mean, it was good. I don't want to sound like it wasn't good. It was good, but it was, just the facts kind of presentation. There wasn't like a lot of shenanigans in the presentation. So it's interesting to hear that the guy is really funny too. but not when he's at these events, I
A
guess.
great. He was a great mimic. He could do anybody.
Oh man.
Uh,
Yep.
um, he sounded exactly like he used to do. I don't know if you remember, this is a really old name from way back.
Oh
Harry
yeah.
Manko, who owns Service Cycle, has spoke with a German accent.
Yeah.
And I used to have to talk when I was with Bell. They were one of our. He would call me on the phone as Harry Manko before caller ID, and I would just absolutely believe it was Harry. It's just he was just so great. Anyway,
I worked with a guy
yeah,
at Cannondale when I first, I came, there was like a recruit, there were four of us sales guys that were new hires. And so we came in together, all from, one guy was from Florida, he was from Boston, and so there's four of us. And we go into Pennsylvania, we go to this guy's house, Steve Gooch. He did they called it the Gooch Institute, where he just kind of taught you
Gooch.
the inner workings.
Yeah, Gooch
Yeah.
is too.
You know Gooch?
Yeah, Gooch.
Oh, he's great. But
I met him through Eric.
oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, he's awesome. But we had this
Yeah.
guy Dave Manchester, and you want to talk about somebody that can mimic anybody. He did the same thing to me. Like he called up a couple times. He was Joe Montgomery, scared the crap out of me. He was like asking all these questions. It was like, whoa, you're on the wrong track here. I don't know what's going on here, Joe. I didn't even know Joe knew my name. You know what I mean? It's like, the founder of Cannondale. But yeah, anyway, but we had this guy that he would leave these messages every day. You'd get like the credit hold releases. This guy, Joe Orcovio. He had this real heavy Boston accent, and he would call sometimes to be Joe Orcovio. He could do anybody though. Super talented guy. The guy should be in show business. He was super funny. He could sing.
Uh-huh.
Guy could do anything. He actually ran Cannondale at one point after long after I had left. But I was actually at a Cannondale sales meeting, and Harry Sherinian calls me, and I'm in Bedford,
Yeah. One of
Pennsylvania. Yeah, and he goes,
uh
"Hey, Mike, I just retired." And he says, "I told Dan Speck, who's my boss, he'd be an idiot if he didn't hire you. Here's his phone number." And that was it. So I'd only worked for Cannondale for about a year. And then I got to interview with Dan. And yeah, yeah, it was funny because I called and he goes, he told me, he goes, Harry told me I'd be an idiot if I didn't hire you. And I said, "Oh, yeah, he told you that too." And he goes, "Well, you're still going to have to come and interview." I said, "Okay, when do you want me?" And but it was cool because that we had that deal with Acura. I had no idea about this deal with Acura. So Harry didn't have an Acura, So I go down there. I flew in and I do the interview. Dan offers me the job. It was like twice what I was making at Cannondale. It was not a tough decision at all. And and of course it was GT, which I loved as a kid. And so I was just like, yeah, yeah, let's do it. He goes, "Okay." So I signed the contract and he introduced me to a few people. And he says, "Okay, let's go over to the Acura dealership." I'm like, "Okay, what are we doing over there?" He goes, "Well, we got to get your vehicle." I was like, "What?" I had no idea. So we went over. I got a brand new Acura SUV. Oh, it's ridiculous, you know. So yeah, I drove
it
home.
was it the Isuzu Trooper. It was the
Yeah,
same. It was the same frame,
it was awesome.
but
I didn't
they made
care.
it all fake.
Yeah, it had the leather interior and the sunroof and the heated
Yeah,
seats.
I
Did you get one of those too?
I got a CL. So we got the deal,
Yeah.
but we had to pay. We had to pay. I
Oh,
think I had to pay $99 a month for a CL, which was back in the day. It was coupe. It was the
yeah,
TL was the four door, the CL was the coupe,
yeah.
and I picked mine out of a catalog, and so I said, well, I like this one. Oh, and look, it's silver. That was right when my eyes started to go. I want this one here. It was called Desert Sunset. I'm like,
Oh,
okay. I pick it. Car shows up. Pink. It's pink. I had the pink yell. I took so much crap for that. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But boy, was that a nice car. It was a
Yeah.
great car.
Yeah, I remember those CLs. That was a killer car. $99 a month, can't beat it. Right?
You really couldn't. It was impossible to beat.
Yeah.
And that included insurance. So it's like, okay, I guess I'll do this for a while.
Uh-huh. Man, it's a shame that the automotive world dipped out of bikes, because I mean there was a while there where it was like Toyota Schwinn, it was GT Acura, it was Fisher whatever, Subaru, Volvo Cannondale. I mean, those were good times.
Yeah. Yeah, the immersion of the big brands and the partnerships with big business, and Norba Nationals, turned into a festival.
Yeah.
I think largely on the heels of all those big companies that, bike companies partnered with.
Yeah.
And that's when the industry really changed because, I mean, back in the day, you went from Cannondale, where you just had to sell bikes, to GT Riteway. And I don't know how much you've delved into your Riteway past, but I mean, that was some real salesmanship, man. You had to go in, you had to know everything, all the new introductions from all the brands that you represented.
Oh yeah.
And that was a big chunk of the time that you spent on each call.
Oh yeah.
And that's the way a lot of the distributors were back in the day. They were selling parts and accessories, and there were so many of them.
Yeah.
When I started at Bell Helmet, we sold through 24 distributors. All the Moore's Cycle, in Kansas City, and we had Jameis, and we had District Cycle. We had all these companies. And my first month, we sat there, and the V1 Pro was getting footballed around. The wholesale price was $26.50 at the time to distributors, and they were supposed to sell it for $38, $37, and the dealers were supposed to retail it for $55. We cut everybody's margin. Meanwhile, they cost us about $7 to make. We're making almost $20 selling these things. But all these distributors, we had all these steps, discounts, where the more you sold, the cheaper you bought it. Right. And so when we get together, Mark Williams, and it comes straight from the motorcycle. That's the way motorcycle businesses work. Those are the kind of margins they got. So I would go into a bike shop. They hated my guts because not only did they have short margins to begin with, Nash Bar and Performance are selling for $29.99. They got to pay. They're like, I buy them wholesale from Nash Bar because my distributor's selling them to me, for $34 or whatever, and I can get it for $29.99 in mail order. And so we said, okay, I had my first month there, I had to fire 10 distributors. Oh, thanks for doing business with us. We're not going to sell to you anymore. And
well, all right, we lost.
Where did I was telling you about my first month at Bell Helmets.
Yeah, you had to fire 10 distributors.
We had such bad. Yeah, I had to fire 10 distributors in person. So I had to go to their place of business. And a lot of times there are these little shops, not a shop, but a little warehouse, and fire these guys. And they were not happy.
Oh, man.
But that was the first step for getting their act together. We did that. We stopped offering discounts for buying more product, and we offered rebates for hitting targets. So they would come in, everybody would come in, they'd have their distributor meeting. We had them in August, and we would set a target for the year. And based on that target, they had to buy 50%. you know, of their target before the end of the year, put it in the warehouse. And and then if they sold that much, they would get a rebate. They didn't get a discount. So at the end of the year, we'd write them a rebate. And then later on, we tied the rebate into being exclusive because we had Veta, like I told you, was a problem.
Yep.
And so we didn't want people carrying Veta. We didn't want to share our distribution advantage with them. And so they all dropped Veta, and Veta went out of business. So yeah, we did a lot of pretty cool. Mark Williams, he was a really sharp guy, and together we came up with some pretty good ideas on how to do it. And then we built in floor pricing to say, look, you can sell it for whatever you want, just not below this, because we made the case that this affects our standing in the marketplace. We are a premium quality, premium price product. And if you sell it down here, it affects our brand. And our lawyers told us we could legally do that. We're the first company to do that. And so we put floor pricing in. I got Arnie Nashbar and Gary Snook at Performance to agree to do it. And that solved a lot of our problems there. And bike shops were finally able to make a real margin on selling our product.
Right. Yeah. I mean, wow, I didn't know that Bell was the first company to do that. We have UMAP now as like standard operating procedure for most products, you know.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you had to, oh man, you had to fire distributors. You know, we could talk about Park Tool. So my whole career, other than my time at Cannondale, I've been selling Park Tool. And during COVID, Park fired Giant as a distributor. And that was really devastating. Like I actually thought about calling up and like,
oh, did they?
Yeah, oh yeah. I actually thought about calling the company and letting them know, like, hey man, I've been doing this for like 30 years selling your stuff, you know, and you just cut off the pipeline. Yeah, it was disappointing. But you know, during COVID, companies, you know, everybody was scrambling and you know, but man, I would sure love to see it back. We're selling Unwar and Bursman tools, which are nice tools, but you know, Park is the standard
Yeah, not
uh,
bad.
in the industry, you know. But yeah, if that didn't feel very good though, you know, after all the years of selling this stuff. I mean, they don't know me, you know, necessarily, but uh, yeah, it's kind of a bummer. But yeah.
Oh, they know you. Stu, they know you. You're legend.
Oh yeah, right. Probably for being a big pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, they make some great
Wait,
stuff and
wait a minute. You got to the bike, bike tech at school. Are you kidding me?
oh yeah.
You're
Yeah. Oh,
legend.
oh man, that's cool. I didn't know if they, you know, how far, you know, if that went up the ladder at all, but that was such a fun time to be trying to piece that all together with Barry and Santa Cruz and uh you know, you got Park was so great for that, you know, those early years. I had to step away, but you know, I know is Park still involved with Bike Tech at school? Do you know?
I'm not positive, but I think so. I know they were for a number of years after I left. I mean, I really had those were some hard meetings with Eric because we Park Tools sold the tools basically at cost
Oh,
to all those schools and
yeah.
a little order. It was, we need 16, repair stands, and we need tool kits for every station, and it was a lot of tools that went
Yeah.
out. And Eric, he knows every expense that happens, and he knew about it, and he kept doing it after I left. So I guess he felt like it was a good idea. So it's
I
good.
think it is. I mean, you know, how many people have been through the program? They're you know, first introduction to bicycle tools. It's all Park. Um,
Right.
yeah, it's something I'm really proud to be associated with,
You did a good thing, Stu.
It wasn't me. I was just a small little tiny part of it, but it takes a village to do something like that. But Barry, Barry was she had the idea to begin with, and she didn't know where to go or how to do it. And she asked me, and then I got Park, got you involved. And I mean, it was just like it all came together pretty great. But we were trying to use the Park Blue Book uh, as the teaching document, but uh, the first class was half the kids didn't even speak English. And so the teacher, we had this great teacher. Oh man, I can't believe I'm spacing on his name right now, but he created basically his own curriculum by drawing. He would do these detailed drawings. Do you remember this? Where it was a bicycle component, and it would have each individual item would have the name in English and then the name in Espanol, and then they would be able to communicate using these sheets that he made, and they were all over the classroom. Do you remember that? Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I sure do. I don't remember his name.
Oh,
I don't
dang
remember
it.
his name. One of the first in Santa Cruz up there, and
Yes.
guy was really awesome.
Yeah, and later, Steve Hess was one of the mechanics. He became he was a great teacher also at the school. But what a cool program! You're a young kid going to high school, and Santa Cruz has they have a pretty great bike industry in Santa Cruz. There's several brands there, and they would do these field trips where they take them to these companies. They get to meet like the CEO and whoever, whether it be Bell Giro or Santa Cruz Bicycles or whatever. They would just always be doing these field trips. They'd bring people in to do talks. I did a talk there one time. Um, yeah, it's cool. Did you ever speak at the
Yeah,
school?
yeah, it was a great program, and I think they took it. They took it nationwide,
Yeah,
and the always that I saw was teachers. How
yeah,
are you going to get teachers? How are you going to know and confirm that they have the knowledge to be able to not only know enough about the bicycle to teach these kids to do things properly, but also have the skill to be able to manage a class of high schoolers. I mean,
right.
those are difficult skills, both of them. Put them
Yes.
together and have a class that makes sense. Thought that was the weak link because we didn't have a recruiting arm to be able to bring these teachers in. Because I think we could pretty easily convince the schools to dedicate the space and dollars, but difficult to get teachers to come in and really be able to teach it properly.
Yeah, that was one of the things I loved about it because it was also a career extension for a lot of bike mechanics. And, if it, like you said, it's not
Right.
easy to go into a high school and wrangle a bunch of high school kids. But, it makes more sense to try to convert somebody that's a mechanic, skilled mechanic, uh, to as opposed to trying to teach a teacher how to, you're starting from ground zero with a school teacher trying to teach them
Right.
about bicycles. That's not going to work. So, yeah, it was a good opportunity for a lot of mechanics, but you gotta have the right ingredients to be able to pull it off.
For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
For
but
sure.
very cool. Yeah, we should give some credit to
Yes.
Mercedes Benzie Ross, and
Right.
Mercedes was the one who kind of took what we started and just took it to a whole nother level. She's got the skills to take it nationwide, where none of us really did. It was just a Santa Cruz thing for Barry and the little group that we had initially.
Right. Right. Well,
Yeah.
she was full employed for it, so
Yeah.
they needed to do it full time. And Benzie knows everybody, so she was good to get a lot of partners to kind of come in and help out. And certainly, Giant Bicycle was
Yeah.
really important partner for all those programs.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt. I applied a little peer pressure there.
Attaboy.
Yeah. I mean,
Well,
come on, what a program. And our dealer is creating it. I mean, come on, we got to support this, you know? So, yeah, it's cool and it's still going strong. So,
right.
yeah. All right. So let's talk about, so after Park Tool, yeah, so you spent 9 years in Minnesota and then you moved back to San Clemente?
Right. Well, we moved
Okay.
to San Diego. Um, we rent our house in San Clemente, and I don't know if I can afford to live in it anymore. It's just, it's like they they charge you to live there now.
Oh, geez.
Uh, yeah, we rent that out, and but our kids moved back to San Diego.
Okay.
So we have 3 daughters, and they moved back from Chico and Santa Barbara, and we had one daughter who was still in San Diego, so they all moved back to San Diego, and uh, our middle daughter Heather started having kids, and so we were in Minnesota, and our grandkids were in Southern California, and it was really tough. So it turned out we were going back to Southern California once a month from Thanksgiving until Easter. So we made about 6 trips in the winter, partly to
Yeah.
get out of the snow and partly just to see family. So you've got Thanksgiving, Christmas, President's Day weekend,
Yeah.
Easter, all the long weekends. We were coming back. We were flying back and spending time here. And I was coaching softball in Minnesota, which was a trip because I've always coached softball.
Yeah.
Our oldest daughter, Jill, was 8 years old in 1985. And I coached her team, and I've been coaching ever since. So that's
Yeah.
40 years coaching softball. You'd think I would learn how to do it by now, but I
I,
coached all my kids. They all grew up, they all went to college, and I just have been coaching since 2003. I've been coaching other people's kids. And so I was coaching softball in Minnesota, and then I wanted to keep coaching softball, but I mean, it was cutting into my work time. It was difficult to put in
yep.
all the hours I had to do and still be able to get out and coach softball. And so I just felt like I'll just coach softball, and I'll keep a couple clients. I'll go back to consulting, keep a couple clients, and move back to Southern California, be around my grandkids and my daughters. And
Yeah.
so yeah, we moved back in this 12 years ago now.
Oh, okay.
Since I held a job,
Yeah.
and
Well,
uh, we it's been really fun, and I know a lot of. I get no respect for coaching softball from the cycling crowd. They have me no respect for that. It's like, you have a whistle. Do you hit the kids? It's like they.
I have a funny story about so I had a dealer at one point in San Francisco. His name it was Bike Nut. And they did super high end. I mean, he would build back, I mean, we're talking 15, 20 years ago, 20 years ago, probably. He's building $15,000 bikes back then, you know. And his name was Hussein Guler. And Hussein was Turkish.
That is quite
Oh, he was unreal. He just had this accent and he was just condescending enough, you know, where it was
right.
like he was cool, but also he would put you in your place pretty quick with that accent. He just had this. And so he loved Giant. So I'm selling him Giants and I go into his shop and I'm in there. He's doing a bike fit while I'm in there.
Right.
And I got my laptop up and and he's barking out stuff while he's working with his client, you know. And then Barry Zito had just signed the largest contract in Major League Baseball history, and it was like all over everything. And the San Francisco Chronicle on the front page of the Chronicle was like, you know, largest contract in history, Barry Zito, blah blah blah. While I'm there, Barry Zito it's like it was in the Marina District and parking's terrible. He double parks his Corvette out in front, jumps out of the car, and I see him coming to the door, and I'm like, holy shit, that's Barry Zito. That's what I'm thinking. Barry Zito opens the door, and he steps in. He says, "Hey, do you guys sell scooters?" And Hussein was so appalled at the question. He's like, "We do high quality bicycles. We don't sell the scooters. Try Walmart." You know, and Barry's like,
Zito.
yeah, he just has this look on his face like, what the hell? And he just turns around and walks out. And I know Hussein, he has no idea who that was, but I'm just like, I'm not going to say anything. So I'm just like, I'm just having this moment by myself. And the guy on the bike who was getting fit, he goes, "Do you know who that was?" And Hussein goes, "Some knucklehead looking for a scooter." And he goes, "That was Barry Zito. The star, he just signed the biggest contract in Major League Baseball history, and he's on the San Francisco Giants." And Hussein goes, "Ball sports?" That was his reaction. So yeah, no respect for coaching.
No respect whatsoever.
Yeah. Ball sports. I always think about that because I like ball sports too, but it's this classic kind of take.
I know. It's funny. I had a friend who worked for Oakley, Tom Lewis, and his daughter played softball for me. He works for Oakley, so he's got a lot of Oakley buddies, Oakley
Sure.
people, very active. A lot of cyclists there.
Yep.
And Tom invites me to this party, and there's lots of young people, a lot of gearheads there. And he's like, "This is Bill." And he goes, "Bill is one of the best softball coaches in the country." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's not true." Okay. Anyway, he's so good at softball. He coaches my daughter, and he's taken the team from nothing to really. And his friends could not be more bored. Could not. I don't have to say it. and then he goes, "And he works for GT Bicycles."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What? Huh? Oh,
Yeah.
NASCAR." And then they wanted to talk about all this GT stuff. All
Yeah.
of a sudden, way more popular. And I'm like, "Tom, never tell people I coach softball."
Well, it is interesting with baseball because I coach my son in baseball, and it's like the baseball conversations are pretty painful a lot of times where you get like even I don't know, it's like you start talking to somebody about coaching and then all of a sudden you're just getting their whole
Lost.
oh, dang it. Yeah, we got some
Uh-oh.
sketchy. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Last thing I heard was baseball. The
Oh,
last thing I
okay.
heard was baseball conversations.
Yeah, sometimes it gets like I'll be at the grocery store or
No,
something. Okay. And somebody will come up and then all of a sudden they're talking and the next thing you know, you're listening to like 30 minutes of them talking about how they break down first and thirds. And it's like, man, I just came here for some milk and some, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, you get stuck in
Yep.
these conversations and you care about the person, you respect them, but at the same time, it's like I can't have this conversation right now, But you get stuck a lot of times. Baseball people are just like cyclists, maybe even more so, you
Yep.
know? Yeah, they're super into it, and
Uh,
I would say I can't imagine all the years you did it. When I retire, I'm going to go back and coach junior 80s and 90s baseball. That's what I'm going to do with my life. It's so fun, and it left such a uh, I don't know. You really feel like you're doing something good. I do feel like kids of that age, like 13 through 15, they need like adults in their life that are not their parents that they can talk to about just different stuff. I really believe that.
and when I'm not on social media anymore because I never convinced anybody to see my point of view on social media. So I felt like but posts from these women, and they're doctors now, and they're lawyers, and they're scientists,
Yeah.
and their dream jobs. And I see them, and they would be at a vacation with their best friend, who I was there when they met at a softball tryout.
Uh,
I remember at her, and now that's your best friend, and your families are going on vacations together, or she's the maid of honor at your wedding. And it's the kind of relationships that the women can build that I
yeah.
don't know, that they get a chance to build in that kind of volume. I mean, my wife has best friends from high school still, but I just think it really, Title IX and the advent of women's sports has put a whole new skill set on the table for women. And I think you can see just by the way that they have assimilated into corporate culture, into politics, into whatever it is that they want to do. They've really applied themselves and used these benefits to
Yeah.
deal with men on an they're not shut out from the old boys clubs anymore, and I think it's fantastic.
I agree. Can you turn your camera on, please? It says Bill Armas's iPhone. Is what I'm looking at.
Oh geez, hang on, here I
This
go again.
this is
Nice.
one of the clunkier podcasts I think I've ever done. It's a good
I'm
thing
the
you're
worst
entertaining. Yeah.
I'm the worst that you've ever done.
No, no, just the clunkiest, not the worst. No.
uh,
Okay, it should be in the lower part of your phone. You see it?
yeah, but I went off of our chat to
Yeah.
get to my router so that I could hear you. I changed routers, and now I got to get back to the thing.
Gee.
And
Well, listen, Bill, we covered quite a bit here, and we are kind of past the 9 o'clock, so we should probably wrap it up anyway. But
okay,
you know, but
dude,
hey,
I didn't talk to you for this long. You NordCal?
yeah, well, yeah, no shit. It's been a long time. We should definitely make a point of getting together because I always enjoy the conversation and nothing but just fond memories of our past together and all the things we've done together over the years. Good times.
Yeah, for real. If
Yeah.
you're if has any money they want to give, they should check out Bike Tech at School, Project
A-
Bike.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a great program and
Really,
yeah, we've got a lot of mechanics that are now in the system because of Bike Tech in School. And in some cases they're bilingual, which that's really valuable,
really.
to have that kind of employee. So
And now they're all salty and working in bike shops. Just
they hate people now.
right. In true bike mechanic session.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. Well, Bill, hey man, go ahead.
Thanks for thinking of me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great having you on, and yeah, it's great to see you too in like kind of retirement mode. Get the
It,
chill.
it is. It kind of is. Yeah. I am keeping busy, but uh, Lord knows, there is life after the bike biz.
Yeah. Well, with the mortgage situation I have, I may not see that until I'm like 75.
Are you still in Livermore?
Yeah. Yep.
You
Same
should have paid
joint.
now. Sell that car.
I did. I sold it at
Did
Barrett Jackson. Yeah.
that car is so beautiful.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I thought I was going to get buried in that car, but
Oh, what a beauty.
yeah, thanks. Yeah, I don't know if I have another car in me. I've restored a lot of cars over the years, but I can't see like I used to. So like working on a car sucks when you can't really see that well.
Both of us sitting here with our glasses on, kind of
Yes.
at each other. It's
I
awesome.
have I have hearing aids too. So I can't see, I can't hear.
Ah,
The
who needs
wheels are
that?
falling off. Yeah.
Legs still, you still
Yeah.
turn a
Oh yeah. The legs still work, thankfully. Yep. All right, Bill. Well, hey, listen, thanks again, man. It's really great catching up with you, and I appreciate you so much.
All right, you got
All
it, man.
right.
And I've appreciated listening to some of your podcasts in my
Nice.
prep being here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, check out the one with Ray Keener. I think you'll enjoy it.
I definitely will. I
Yeah.
got to, Rob Kaplan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do you know
Uh,
Rob?
Stories too. I was going to tell some Rob Kaplan stories because he made himself sound so smart. But I mean, God, what a dumb. No, I'm just kidding. He's a great. Love Rob.
Yeah. Who doesn't? He's a true
Yeah,
professional.
he's a
Yeah.
good guy.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you. Thank you.
All right.
If you like what we're doing here at Cycle Jerks Podcast and you would like to support us, please check out our website at cyclejerkspodcast.buzzsprout.com. Hit the subscribe button. We shout out all subscribers, so get on it. Another way you can support the podcast would be by giving us a 5-star review on whatever streaming platform that you're listening on. We appreciate you. Thanks so much.
Cycle Jerks.
Hey, get out of the road, dummy.
Cycle Jerks Podcast.